All right, so I'm putting together the colors for our, what we call Emerald City. You see in this cup, I've actually already got 4 colors. I have gold, I have copper, and I have our emerald green, which is our proprietary mix, and black. So I'm gonna go back now and put a second layer in here. And the thinner the layers that I use, the closer together the colors are when I pour them out. So I'm going to put just a little more copper in there, a little more gold, and then I'll finish that with a layer of the emerald green. All right, now what I do, this is called poured acrylics because I thinned our paints, and then these have been layered in here, and now I'm going to pour them out. And once here in just a couple seconds, I'm going to lift this cup up, and you see this interesting thing I've gotten already. And now I will move the paint. So in moving, you see these little cells or bubbles, things, these start appearing. And of course, I'm going to try to manipulate this in such a way where some of the colors go where I want them to. So like up in this area, that's not very attractive. So I will try to force some of that more interesting part of the paints here down into that area. See if I can kind of channel it into there and see what happens when I sort of spread that out. This is just one way that I make these paintings for our very different kind of hand-painted stones. We say hand-painted because I don't technically paint each piece of glass, but what I do is make these kind of paintings, and then I will capture parts of them under the glass. So you see I'm trying to channel and trying to move the paint into areas it ends up plain, because the plain areas are not what anybody wants in a stone they're going to wear in a bolo, a buckle, a pendant, earrings, or whatever it is I'm making. So I do have an order for this color set with a cross in it for a large bolo. So I won't just make one of these. I can see from this painting, I think I'm going to want to add some more black. I think I could have used a little more black in this one. And the gold is a little dominant, so I'm going to see if I can channel that. I'm going to add some more black in this next round. So what I'm going to do is lay this one aside, and then I'm going to get another piece of our substrate under here. And I had turned the cup up that I was using, and so now we'll start. Ooh, so that's really interesting, that little section right there, but we'll add some more paint to it. So we've got the green, but a little bit of black. It's the black that has a little bit of silicone in it, and that creates those little bubbly areas. I'm going to put very little gold in it, and then just a wee bit of copper before I go through and do another layer. But I'm intentionally putting more green than the other colors, and then a little more black in here. So I think what I'll do is I'll just put a little bit more green to top it off, and I will pour it over here. I'll kind of do it a little differently. And then I'll always take the cup and dump it upside down on another piece of plastic. This just happens to be polyethylene. I'm going to start moving this. You see, the gold starts to create a glittery, shimmery sort of effect wherever it's landing. So of course I want to move some of that. So it doesn't, I could add paint to the top of this in some areas that really aren't getting a lot of paint. I think I see some blobs here, so all I do there, literally take tweezers and get that blob out of there. We don't want that because when that dries, I won't be able to use that for a stone, for the glass, because it'll look funky. So we didn't want that now, do we? So I'm going to try to move some of this multicolored area here that looks like the river into one of the areas that wasn't really getting much color variation. It's the color variation that makes for the interesting stones. So I still see a little bit more of a blob right there. And then I'm going to just move this just a hair more, looking for, looks like some little blobs. So they kind of make a lump, I don't know if you can see that in the camera, but, and actually the iPhones don't pick up greens all that well, so what may look like, I don't know, a turquoisey blue from what I'm looking at in the lens right now is really an emerald green. It's really just like you'd picture an emerald. So something else I look for when I'm moving the paint is I'm looking for, number one, no solid areas. I won't use those. And I'm looking for little zigzags, because that does make for interesting stones. So I have to create those by moving the paint a couple of times. And then having made about 5,000 stones now, sometimes, I get a pretty good idea of what this will produce. That one's pretty decent. I'm going to put that over here right now with the other one. And then this time, I'm going to take the substrate. Now, if you see paint on these, it's actually on the other side. Just didn't peel all the way off. And I'm going to use the polyethylene again, but this time, I'm going to kind of just put the paint around. And we'll just see how this works. And I have two kinds of black here. One that has the silicone, one does not. This one does not have any silicone. Just gonna put a little bit kind of around. And then we're going to just put small bits of the gold. And of course the copper. I'll layer them a little differently. May put a little bit of green back on top. And I'll probably put this black with the silicone in it on the very top so that I can see those patterns. So this is interesting all by itself, but now when I start to move it, it should have a different effect than the other ones. So I really just kind of start to spread the paint around. You see I'm already getting the cell action right in here from the black I put on top that has the silicone in it. So this may not be as desirable an effect. But, I'm not using anything more than like 1.5 inches. So what I'm trying to create is some variation that I think I can capture in interesting combinations in that 1.5 inch stone that fits, excuse me, into our bolo and buckle settings, and also the ladies' pendants, and I have a bracelet that uses that same size for them. So Just trying to create some zigzaggy things. It's funny, there's no gold in that one at all. What I may do is just kind of dip something in there and see if I can get a little gold going. And then move it a little bit more so it doesn't look like I necessarily added it, although it might not be bad. So I can tell I've still got a pretty good bit of paint right there. That's why it's moving so quickly in and around. And I'm going to try to create some more zigzaggy looking things. I do see a lump right there. From my angle, it creates a little bit more of a shiny area, you know, like any bump would that's under light. So that is looking interesting. See if I can get some of that extra paint. So who knows with this one, the gold was a little weird on that one. Let's try another one. And here is another piece of plastic. And I'm just double checking that that is upside down. Nope, that was the, okay. Here it is. So I'm going to try again. I think I'll put the gold on this time, and maybe some copper going the other way. Probably too much copper. Let's see, what about if I put a real thin layer of the black, and then I'm going to put the black that has the cells, the silicone in it, trying to get these cells. I'll just put that on top here. Looks like I need to make some more. What I'll do is I'll scrape some of that out of there. Sorry, my voice is still warming up for the day. All right, now let's see what happens. That's a great thing. I call this, excuse me, the Forrest Gump effect. You know, I never really know what I'm going to get until I start moving the paint. And it all comes out a little differently each time because, of course, I don't move it the same. The layers aren't the same. You know, the amount of paint that I put in isn't exactly the same because I intentionally don't measure it. I do measure how I thin the paint. That's all measured and weighed. And you can see there's the gold is more dominant this time. Not sure I like that. So I think what I'll do is I'll put a little more green in there. And probably just a wee bit of black. And maybe just a hair of copper in there. That was just too much. Whoops. And now I got too much gold. Well, you know, that is the fun of doing this, is that I play around and then I try something different. I'll add a little of this, add a little of that. And, you know, sometimes it comes out great and sometimes, you know, not so much. But that is the fun of it. And that is how I get a different kinds of stones each and every time. I really don't want them to come out the same. You don't want them to come out the same. You don't want the same thing as the next guy or gal, you know. You want something unique. So this is how I get it. Now, as I'm stretching the paint this way, that area is kind of icky. So I'm going to move some paint back that way. Kind of cover that up. I don't like that. I don't like it because it just had a kind of an ugly coloring right there. And so I can move some of the paint. I'm going to sort of channel it in that little corner right there. It was also, you know, a little icky. So I'm not liking that right there. The black got underneath the gold and it's ugly. So we're going to move that way, and then I've got a lot of paint sitting on the top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this, just that part of the paint. So the top is not going to move. I'm going to limit what's moving. And I'm going to channel that. So like I tell people, I have some control, but I never really know what I'm going to get, because even after this, it'll have to dry, and things will change as it dries. You know, there'll be some of these other cells will pop up as it dries. Okay, so I'm going to leave that one. Next step is it has to dry for 3 days.